So we're gonna go ahead and start cutting the plywood bucks that we're gonna use to go around that window frame that's gonna hide that flange. If you don't have a table saw, which mine happens to be over at a client's house on a job site, you can go ahead and use your tailgate with just some clamps and a circular saw. Use the level to use your straight edge, and then we can go ahead and get this cut, and then I'll show you how we're gonna install those. So we're going ahead and we're starting to put together the window frame here, which we're gonna slide right through the metal. So we're gonna end up, I'll show you what we're gonna do for the dimensions there. But we went ahead and ripped these, they're about 5/8 plywood, just to cover that fin there. So what we'll do is we'll just put a little dollop of glue in two places just to hold those in place until we actually go ahead and screw the whole frame together. But essentially these are here just to cover that fin, because I like to leave it. If you're working off of something, you actually could, you didn't need to pull these, put these strips in. You could cut this fin off with a grinder if you had to. But I like that edge, that profile to be in there. So I'm gonna caulk along that fin. Gives me a big, nice section to make sure I seal it really well. So for us, we're gonna go ahead and put these strips on here, which will flush up, and I switched around. And then we're gonna have a 2x4 frame that's doubled up. So these are gonna go on here. Then there's gonna be another 2x4 that stacks on top of that. So essentially, it's gonna be like this, all the way around with another 2x coming down. Why we're gonna do that is we're gonna put this metal cladding that's gonna go over the top of that. And I'll show you that in a second. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this built, then you'll see more in depth what it's gonna look like. When we're putting together these frames, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You could do just a good old drill, and sorry, that's an impact, which is virtually the same thing as a drill, just drives in the screws a little bit quicker and easier. It sometimes makes it even easier if you use a drill with a little pre-drill bit on it to just drill in your locations first, which we can actually just go ahead and do. Just to get it started, that's it. And you can kind of see how this goes. If we do one of these real quick to get this frame together. Okay, then we have, you'd virtually go through and do every single one like that, which can take a little bit of time. Otherwise, this is a DeWalt framing nailer, battery powered, awesome. If you're doing a huge job where you have like framing a whole house or something, this wouldn't make any sense. But for little things like this is a fantastic tool. Don't have to bust out the air compressor, lines, all that kind of stuff. As you can see, I have like every DeWalt tool made. So I prefer DeWalt. I also just bought a Milwaukee set not too long ago, and Milwaukee's probably gonna hate me for this, but I think this is incredibly overpriced. The DeWalt tools are most of the time less expensive than the Milwaukee's, and in my opinion are 1,000 times better. So I'm a general contractor. I do this every day for work, and this is what I've chosen to use. But there's a lot of tool sets out there. They're a lot cheaper, you know, Ryobi, some other ones. But the DeWalts are, for me, the way to go. So I can show you how this framing nailer works real quick. This will be a very quick boom. So I could be nailing this together real quickly. So you can see that's gonna go real quick when I start framing stuff together, and I can run through this kind of stuff real quickly when I have the proper tools. Oop, that one didn't quite set. And then you can go through, if you were using something like this and you didn't quite set a nail, just take your hammer, tap that one down. But this is essentially what one of our frames is gonna look like. And then we're going to double it up with a second piece of framing. And while we're doing this, the second piece is just the window width plus 1/4 inch. And then what I did was just added 3 inches for the inch and a half of each one. So this piece was the width of the window with that lip on it, and then 3 inches to account for each one of these 2x4s. The second piece I cut is this piece plus another 3 inches. So I can just kind of mass produce this real quickly when I'm chopping up all my wood. If you use a miter saw like this, again, battery powered, really nice, easy to go. Cuts fantastic actually with these big batteries that DeWalt makes. But this is way faster than sitting there with a circular saw, hand cutting and squaring them all up, because you just got to make a little mark, set it on there, chop it real quick. But what we're going to do here is double this up, and I don't have any of the aluminum, so we'll cut to that. Back to the aluminum, this is virtually what we're going to be doing with this, and this is why we're building this double 2x4 frame. Not only is it going to be nice and strong, but we're going to take this, you know, essentially there would be another piece here, but this would be sliding right over our 2x4s. We'd have glue underneath here, and then a nice bead of like clear or white rubberized silicone or something. And this would slide up into that joint, push down onto it, and then your next piece would be exactly the same. And then that's gonna be your window frame. And then we'll show you how it gets attached into the framing on the other side and how it's secured in place. But this virtually eliminates welding altogether if you're not a welder. When we start building these frames, we wanted to just give you an example of what it's gonna look like when it's all finished. You do not want to install this window prior like we did here. This is purely just so we can show you what the finished product looks like, and why we're cutting our window openings a lot bigger than what the size of the window is. But what we did here, and you can see I haven't even caulked any of this in because I wanted to show you the raw product. So you could see we just mitered these corners, and what I did for these, I just got a standard circular saw, or sorry, miter saw, and I put a 10-inch table saw metal cutoff wheel, and just put it right on that. You see, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but you can take a file and you'll file these down, and then we'll use a really good polyurethane sealant across these. And what I actually did when this is just aluminum cladding, and I put glue behind here, some really high quality glue, and put that behind here, and then right at the seams, I put a really heavy bead of clear rubberized sealant. So when I squish this, you can't see it at all. Normally what I'll do is actually put white behind there, then that will leave this joint almost invisible, and then I'll put another coat of some polyurethane over it. It also has a nice gap in here to put a nice heavy bead of some polyurethane sealant all the way around the perimeter of the window. And then this thing, when it's in place, we'll just be putting this frame in, then we'll put the window in afterwards and secure it through this double side. You can see the back here. We've got a double 2x4 frame. This is that plywood I was talking about earlier that we were gonna put on the side because it has that fin in the front. And rather than cutting the fin off, we just decided to have an extra plywood buck for the window to sit on. And then we can fasten all of our screws right through this. And then this window is gonna be screwed in the framing into the framing on the inside. And we'll give you another option of what we did on this window, which was welding in these brackets to the frame so that what we can do is put the window in and screw it from the underside into the window. So if you're a welder, this is gonna be one option to do. If you're not a welder, we can show you a window installation. You don't even have to weld at all. We're just gonna screw it right to our framing and reinforce the framing around those window points.